Hello, my name is Ava, and today I'm going to be reading the book I wrote 3 years ago. Yep, you heard me correctly. I wrote that book back in 2022. It is now May 2025, and I still have not read it, which is why in today's writing vlog, I'm going to be reading draft 3 of my novel. So as I read this, I'm going to be using my trusty green mechanical pencil to take notes because I do not feel like committing to pen, even though I have become a die-hard pen girl. I don't know the last time I wrote anything in pencil that was longer than like a sentence or two. I will say that I did start reading this in February, which is when I had it printed. But I did not get very far. I think I literally read just the first chapter. So there are already some notes in my green pencil, but I'm just going to be adding to them now. So I've now read the first 5 chapters, which there is 25 chapters total, so I think I'm going to roughly try to do an update every 5 chapters. It's better than I was expecting, but it also has many faults. You know, I feel like that's kind of what you expect going into reading your old writing, is that it might surprise you with some parts that are really good, and then there's other parts that are really bad. But in general, I think I do a good job of establishing all of the main characters, and especially the setting as well. I mean, at times it's a little bit too much information, but one of the most important things about this story that has remained constant from when I had the idea way back in 2018, the very early beginnings of the story, up until now, and the future of this project, whatever that may look like, there is always going to be the same setting, which is a small town on Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada. I am from BC. I'm not from the island, but I have spent much time there. It has always been a place that has really inspired me. I've always thought about writing a story there. I just feel like it is such a unique setting, or it's just a setting that I'm very familiar with and that I knew that I wanted to have in one of my novels. And I think for this story, considering it's like a young adult contemporary mixed with a mystery, I'd say it is a bit of a generic, like, small town YA story where there's like someone goes missing, which is exactly what happens, but I'll get into that. But like that mixture of like a contemporary story set in a small town with a small cast of characters that have all known each other for a really long time, and of course the small town setting, the really familiarity with all the locations in the story and in my story. The lake plays a very central focus. It's where everyone goes. It's what the town is known for. It's kind of like the one anchor of the town, and it is also the anchor of a lot of the actions of the story. I've also been really impressed by the internal monologue of the protagonist, and especially his dynamic with his sister. That's one of the most central parts of the story as well, is that his sister goes missing very early on in the book, and the driving force of the novel is that he feels like he has a responsibility to try to find out what happened to her and where she is, because he has been aware for a long time that their relationship has been deteriorating, and that he's constantly comparing his relationship to other people around him, other people's sibling relationships, and he's felt for so long that he wants to try to reconcile things with her and to rekindle their sibling relationship, but she goes missing, and then he feels like, okay, the only way that I can make things up to her is if I find out what is going on. And so I'm enjoying the reading experience, and I will update you whenever I have something to say. It is now a while later, as you might be able to tell from my bed behind me. I did decide to move from my desk to my bed to read chapters 6 through 17. Actually, no, 6 through 16. I am now on chapter 17, so I have not been updating you every 5 chapters like I said I would. However, that is because the chapters are a lot shorter. This draft in general is not very long. It's about 64,000 words, I think, which I know is very short for a manuscript. It is basically half the length of my second draft, which is very apparent in the book itself. It feels like a very stripped down version of the story, which I think is ultimately one of the reasons why this draft, I believe, is of higher quality than the first two, which I mean is kind of a given, given it's the third draft. But I truly feel like it is the story at its most essential parts, and that is even apparent with the prose. I feel like the prose is so much stronger than the first two drafts, and it really feels like I am using every opportunity that I have to express what I want to express about these characters and about this story. There have been quite a few lines that I've read, or moments in a scene, where I've actually been surprised by the fact that I was able to write those words, which is such an incredible feeling to have. It's really motivating, which is exactly what I wanted to get out of reading this project. Although I don't plan on continuing with the project in the near future, I decided to go back and read this draft, both because, you know, it's about time that I finally did it, but also to seek some inspiration for my own past work and to remind myself that I actually am capable of writing. And reading this today has made me realize, oh, I'm capable of writing some good sentences as well. I'm not just capable of producing words, I'm capable of creating an actual story with actual scenes and lines of dialogue and specific descriptions that are reminiscent of the books that I love to read and are that step closer towards the future finished novel that I can envision having one day. That while that is still a very far off goal, it is good to feel like, okay, maybe I can actually be a writer. Like maybe I actually can write a quality book that can be potentially read by others, because my past two drafts have really not been at that kind of level where I've wanted to share it with anybody, even my close friends who I know would not judge me the same way that a fellow writer might judge me being a loose term here. I just personally have felt like those books have been entirely for me. They have not been with the intent of an audience, with the intent of being of a certain quality, not even the quality, but just perceived. And with that, I'm going to go back to reading, and hopefully the next time I update you, I'll be done with the whole book, and then I can give you some more coherent thoughts. Okay, I just need to mention that I'm about to start chapter 19, and stuff is about to go down, and I legitimately do not remember what happens in the next scene. So, I'm about to find out. Something just happened. I just read a line. I'm like 10 pages from the end. I had to pause and film this clip. That's how shocked I am. Clearly I did something there, putting that line in. I mean, I'm gonna keep reading and see how this is going to finish. You see that? I finished. However, it is late enough that I think I'm gonna call my night here, and then I will give you a proper update tomorrow. It is now the next day, and I'm here to provide my final closing thoughts. I really feel like reading this draft was the first step that I had to take towards my future in writing, which essentially involves temporarily saying goodbye to this project. I didn't go into reading this draft with the intention of continuing to work on this project. I went into it with the intention of reading it to remind myself what I'm capable of, remind myself of the world that I created, the story I created, the project that I spent so much time working on, the project that I devoted so much time here on my YouTube channel creating my writing vlogs, documenting the writing process. However, I will say that revisiting this project has made me somewhat unfortunately think about what I might do with this project in the future. I say unfortunately because I really do think it's time for me to start a brand new project, which I do have a secondary project or a specific project in mind that I have been itching to start for a very long time now, and I think that now is finally the time for me to put this project aside and to start something new. However, revisiting this draft has made me inevitably think about what I might do with this project in the future, and it definitely did get my brain going. A few months ago, I started thinking about this project again, and I wrote some stuff down like in the notes app on my phone, and I thought about a way that I could take it from being a young adult story into being an adult story, because where I am now, I don't really have any interest in writing any more YA stories, and so that really got my mind turning. Reading this draft has only added to those little brain worms, but I'm trying to kind of quiet them down and just file them away in the back of my mind. Obviously, if I get inspiration, I'm going to jot it down, but I am relieved that I feel like this project still does have a future. I see a lot of potential in this story, which is not something that I honestly knew I was going to feel going into reading this draft. And so to read it and to see, like I mentioned, it's basically just the bones of the story, but those bones of the story are strong. I think there's a lot of potential with this world and with these characters. I really don't think that I am saying goodbye to this project forever. I think I'm just gonna have to temporarily say goodbye to it and instead channel my energy towards a new project, which I cannot wait to document in my future writing vlogs. If you would like to join me on my journey to starting a new project and potentially still working on this project in the future, please subscribe. Please check out my old writing vlogs if you are interested in hearing a bit more about this project and especially seeing my process of writing the second draft. I would also greatly appreciate it if you could follow me on Instagram, because that is something that I am starting for the first time now that I've made my return to making YouTube videos, and I plan on sharing some really exciting stuff there that is going to be a bit different than obviously my long-form YouTube video type of content. And thank you so much to everybody that watched, liked, and commented on my last video, my return to YouTube sort of update video. Thank you so much for still being here and still caring about me, and I plan on making lots more content in the future this summer, and I hope that you'll be there to join me on my writing journey. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye!